Walmart plans to cut about 1,500 jobs in a restructuring aimed at trimming its expenses and speed up decision-making. The Wall Street Journal reports that the company told employees it will reshape some of its teams, particularly in global technology.
President Trump, a short time ago, telling Walmart that the company should, I'm quoting now, eat the cost.
Walmart says their first quarter profits slipped and they have to raise their prices as a result of the tariffs, threatening their low price model.
It all started with a shockwave. In early April 2025, Walmart, yes Walmart, the retail giant known for keeping costs low, dropped a bombshell. They announced they were slashing 1,500 jobs as part of a massive restructuring effort. The aim? Cut expenses. Speed up decision-making. But let's be real, it was damage control. And here's why: Walmart's first quarter profit had slipped badly. And they were quick to point fingers, blaming rising tariffs for the sudden spike in costs. These weren't small changes either. We're talking a full-blown price hike across the board. President Trump, furious, told Walmart to eat the cost. His exact words. But Walmart said no. Instead, they passed the price increases directly to us, the customers. Overnight, things got ugly. Think about it like this: you head to Walmart for your usual $9 pack of beef. But now, it's $14. A 500g tray. A bag of lettuce, up 30%. Your favorite cereal, $2 more. All at once, your regular grocery trip starts looking like a luxury outing. And this wasn't just about the US. Behind the scenes, supply chains were cracking. Food shipments to countries in Asia and Africa slowed to a crawl. Supermarkets from Nairobi to Manila reported US imports disappearing. Cooking oil, canned meats, rice, all vanishing. And when they did arrive, they were marked up with brutal price tags. In Southeast Asia, US products became rare and expensive. This wasn't just a domestic policy move, it was a global disruption. And back home, the pressure kept mounting. Walmart was on the verge of what could become a $25 billion loss. Yes, billion. In just one quarter. By the end of June, they were forced to shut down 10 major distribution centers. That's over 50,000 jobs at risk. Just like that. So what happened? It all kicked off on April 2, 2025, with Executive Order 14,257. What Trump dubbed Liberation Day tariffs. Overnight, the landscape changed. Nearly every import entering the US was slapped with a 10% base tariff. Only Canada and Mexico were spared. Then came round 2. Just 4 days later, retaliatory tariffs hit 60 trade partners. And China took the hardest hit, 145% tariff on most of its exports to the US. To put it plainly, if your product came from China, it became instantly unaffordable. Factories in China, like Huner Toy Factory, were forced to cancel US orders. Production dropped by 70%.
And the fallout?
The American Toy Association warned half its members were staring down bankruptcy. Shipping rates skyrocketed. The cost to ship a container from Shenzhen to Long Beach tripled. And in the background, a second storm was brewing. At US ports, Los Angeles, Long Beach, Savannah, containers started piling up. Customs brokers were stunned. Importers simply walked away from their goods. They couldn't pay the tariffs.
So the cargo sat. Rotting.
Forgotten. These weren't just electronics or furniture. We're talking perishable goods. Meat.
Produce.
Entire shipments abandoned on the docks. And with the holiday season approaching, analysts warned, the shelves might be empty when the Christmas rush hits. Meanwhile, in Europe, the markets were reeling. On May 2nd, Trump threatened to slap a 50% tariff on all European imports. It sparked a tense call with the EU president and bought a short delay, until July 9th. But the damage was done. In just 3 days, European stock markets bled $180 billion. Germany's car exports froze.
The Eurostoxx 600 plunged de 4,4%.
And South Korea? Hit with a sudden 25% tariff on imported cars, endangering nearly half of Hyundai and Kia's US-bound shipments. While big headlines focused on policy and profits, ordinary workers were getting crushed. Walmart associates saw their shifts cut. Warehouse workers lost overtime. Some were forced into part-time schedules. And all this just when summer hiring should have kicked into high gear. Labor unions began raising red flags. These tariffs weren't just targeting foreign nations. They were hurting American families. And then came the court twist. On May 28, the U.S. Court of International Trade ruled that Trump had overstepped his EPA authority. Tariffs were temporarily paused. But instead of relief, it caused chaos. No one knew what was next. Would the tariffs come roaring back overnight? Would they increase? Businesses were left paralyzed. Walmart included. Meanwhile, Walmart tried to shift its sourcing. Factories in Vietnam and India tried to step in. But they couldn't replace China overnight. Backlogs in Vietnam stretched 6 months. Indian electronics plants struggled due to missing components, many still sourced from China. Shipping costs exploded. A 40-foot container that cost $3,500 in March, now it was $6,500. And climbing fast. Some carriers warned it could hit $8,500 before summer ends. Blank sailings, ships skipping ports, jumped by 20%. Delays were everywhere. Shelves stayed empty. Walmart's just-in-time delivery model, the system they'd perfected over decades, was now failing. Even Walmart admitted, some days, stores couldn't restock basic items. And let's not forget small businesses. Walmart's third-party seller marketplace, once a rising star designed to rival Amazon, was in trouble too. Small brands selling home goods, toys, apparel, they couldn't absorb the new tariff costs. Some raised prices. Others quit entirely. The dream of a low-cost Amazon alternative? Fading fast. At the same time, banks got nervous. Many started cutting off financing to importers tied to Chinese goods. Venture capital backed away from logistics startups. And warehouse rent? Quadrupled.
No exagerasten.
One startup, Flex, reported a 6-fold surge in warehouse space inquiries. For the first time, they had to create a wait list. Agricultural exporters had their own nightmare. Walmart used to ship U.S. beef and produce across Asia. Now, those goods were stuck. Some spoiled in storage. Some never even made it onto a boat. Beef exports piled up. Sell-by dates ticked down. And farmers, already reeling from the pandemic and the last trade war, watched their hard-earned gains evaporate. It was déjà vu. Only worse. And here's the part that hits everyone. Economists now say these tariffs alone could add $1,000 a year to the average American family's expenses. Walmart's CFO went on CNBC and laid it out. Beef rising from $12 to $14 a pound. Patio furniture from Guangdong?
Now $60 more.
A child's car seat from Suzhou, up $100. From $350 to $450. Even Walmart's digital future, once their great hope, is stumbling. And as all this unfolds, we're seeing something much bigger, a supply chain cracking.
À retail empire stumbling.
A trade war that's not just about politics, but about the price we all pay at checkout.
It started slowly.
Cargo ships sat offshore, unable to unload. Supermarket shelves looked eerily bare. In places like suburban Walmarts, where everything from cereal to socks is supposed to be in constant supply, the just-in-time system, the system that kept goods flowing like clockwork, was stalling out. And while officials in D.C. kept promising that tariffs would bring prices down and American factories back to life, families were already paying more for milk and cereal. Tens of thousands of warehouse workers?
Sitting idle.
Small businesses?
Scrambling.
The people paying the steepest price? Everyday working-class Americans.
Behind closed doors, Walmart hit the panic button.
A leaked internal memo, Project Triage, confirmed what many feared. On May 28, Walmart announced it would shut down 10 massive distribution hubs across the U.S., from California to Florida. In just 6 weeks. Let that sink in, massive hubs, each the size of 14 football fields, going dark. Not only does that send shockwaves through Walmart's system, it affects nearby gas stations, diners, trucking companies, even schools worried about losing tax revenue. What happens when the biggest retailer in the country starts closing down its heart? These weren't random facilities. These were vital arteries in Walmart's logistics bloodstream. Riverside and Fontana in California, Brooksville and Winter Haven in Florida, Pageland in South Carolina, Sanger in Texas, Elwood in Illinois, Groveport in Ohio, Plainfield in Indiana, and Menominee, Wisconsin. Each of them fed Walmart's massive 151 million square foot logistics web. And now, around 50,000 workers, most of them temps or agency hires, were told their jobs would vanish by June 30th. Meanwhile, Capitol Hill lit up. Lawmakers on both sides demanded answers. How could Walmart claim all was fine when stores were bracing for week-long food delivery delays? Inside stores, the vibe turned frantic. Managers were told to stock every freezer to the brim. Why? Because they knew things were about to get worse. While Walmart scrambled, its competitors made their move.
Amazon,
Slashed prices at Whole Foods.
Aldi and Dollar General,
Expanded grocery aisles overnight. The goal was clear: grab Walmart's frustrated customers before they disappear for good. In the 2025 retail war, winning meant capturing the wallets of a shrinking middle class. But how do you do that with rising tariffs and broken supply chains? On TikTok, panic went viral. Hashtag empty aisles exploded. 12 million views in a single day. Videos of empty shelves.
Chopper tagging the président.
Asking, is bread next to disappear? Because here's the thing, this wasn't abstract policy anymore. The tariff war? It was showing up in people's grocery carts and on their dinner tables. The deeper story is even more sobering. This isn't just about one company. Walmart's unraveling became ground zero for an economic storm. Back in Brooksville, Florida, a company called Everbright Sewing closed its doors. Why? Because Walmart canceled 20,000 uniform orders.
Just like that.
One phone call meant bankruptcy. They weren't alone. Reuters reported that Walmart was leaning on its Chinese suppliers, demanding 10% price cuts with every round of new tariffs. Cookware, toys, clothes, everything was hit. Factories in China couldn't keep up. One of them, the Huner Toy Factory in Guangdong, Walmart's partner for 40 years, cut production by 70%. In 3 weeks, they laid off 130 workers. Gone. Back home, small business owners weren't faring much better. Confidence levels dropped to their lowest in over 50 years. Because no one wanted to sign a contract today that could be worthless tomorrow if the rules changed overnight. Shipping rates? They skyrocketed, from $3,500 to $6,500 per container. Analysts warned they could hit $8,500 by mid-June. That's more than double. On highways, trucking firms rushed to deliver goods before the tariffs hit. Then boom. The rush ended. Trucking volumes flatlined. Drivers lost reliable routes. Some ended up furloughed. Some just quit. No safety net. Just a domino effect, hitting warehouses, truckers, diners, even the farms that relied on Walmart's system to ship beef and produce overseas. Now, that produce sat in cold storage. Rotting. Unsold. Walmart wasn't just going to sit back. It fought back with a massive plan called Project Reset, a total overhaul of its global supply chain. Think of it as rebuilding a train while it's moving at full speed. Step 1. Move away from China. Before tariffs, 60% of Walmart's non-essential goods came from there. By early 2025, that dropped to 48%. The company started making deals with suppliers in Vietnam, India, and Cambodia. In fact, Vietnam's Ministry of Industry and Trade revealed Walmart would invest $1.2 billion to expand textile production there. In return, they secured a reduced tariff rate. But there's always a but. In April, the U.S. threatened Vietnam with anti-dumping tariffs up to 46%. Politics made the pivot shaky. So what's next? Walmart decided it couldn't count on overseas suppliers alone. Enter the Maiden Heartland Initiative, a $5 billion plan. To build 3 new factories in Arkansas, Ohio, and South Carolina. These would focus on home goods and electronics.
The big dream?
Slash overseas shipping times from 28 days down to 1 week. But that raises the question, can America's manufacturing industry ramp up fast enough to take over China's role? To push even further, Walmart bet on a futuristic tech solution. They teamed up with robotics company Symbotic and rolled out something called Link 16, an AI system that sounds like it came straight from the Pentagon. It's actually named after a military data network. This $520 million system was installed across 400 fulfillment centers. It could analyze tariffs, weather, shipping routes, in real time, and reroute goods before disaster struck. Executives say it'll save $600 million a year. And maybe someday, Walmart could rent it out to others, turning its supply chain from a cost into a revenue stream.
Pretty wild, right?
But there's a catch. All of this depends on politics. If a new president reverses tariffs in 2029, Walmart could be stuck with billions in factory investments it no longer needs. If tariffs stay and Walmart moves too slow, it risks bleeding more money. Talk about walking a tightrope. So what does Wall Street think? Well, not much. 6 weeks after the new tariffs hit, Walmart's stock crashed 11%, wiping out $37 billion in value. And it didn't stop there. FedEx slashed its outlook. The Dow Jones Transportation Index dropped 17% from November highs.
Warehouse Real Estate Giant Prology lost almost 10% in one day.
Why? When Walmart shuts its hubs, warehouses don't need to exist. As one analyst bluntly put it, when a warehouse shuts its doors, every truck waiting outside turns to rust. ETF investors panicked, pulling $6 billion out of retail and transportation funds in just 48 hours, the worst exodus since 2008.
Now the global side.
Europe warned that 70% of its exports to the US, that's $380 billion worth, were now at risk.
While Walmart took center stage, other retail giants began making quiet exits of their own. Target, Costco, and Home Depot didn't wait to see how bad things might get. They started shifting massive portions of their supply chains out of China. Where to? Vietnam and India became the go-to alternatives. But this wasn't just a smart move, it was a survival tactic. Target struck deals with Vietnamese garment factories. Costco ramped up partnerships with Indian spice and home goods exporters. On paper, it made sense. In practice, total chaos. Vietnamese ports, not built to handle the surge, reported record backlogs. Indian customs struggled with a flood of new registrations. And guess what? Most of these suppliers still depend on China for raw materials or components. So even moving out of China still led you back to China. The irony? Tariffs aimed at cutting ties with China were instead accelerating a global game of supplier musical chairs, and shoppers were footing the bill. You might be wondering, did any of this bring jobs back to the US? The short answer, briefly. As imports became more expensive, a handful of American factories saw a spike in demand. Small textile plants in North Carolina ramped up production. A plastic goods factory in Ohio brought back 2 production lines. And for a moment, it looked like tariffs might deliver on that promise of domestic revival. But the celebration didn't last long. Why? Costs. Labor in the US is dramatically more expensive than in Southeast Asia. Even with tariffs, US-made products couldn't compete in price. One plant manager put it bluntly, people want made in America, but they don't want to pay 40% more. By July, many of these newly reopened factories were already scaling back. The so-called reshoring boom turned into a false dawn. Now, let's talk about the folks behind the scenes, the logistics workers, the truck drivers, the forklift operators, the warehouse managers. When Walmart shut down 10 distribution centers, it didn't just lay off its own workers, it rattled an entire network. Trucking companies reported a 22% drop in short-haul routes linked to Walmart warehouses. Independent owner-operators said payments were delayed or rerouted. Some even parked their rigs. They couldn't cover fuel costs anymore. Bonded warehouse operators saw space fill up in days. Remember Startup Flex, the warehouse rental company? By late June, they were overwhelmed. Their CEO said it best, "We built for peak demand." This is beyond peak. This is panic storage. And every added day in storage meant more cost, which meant more price hikes. Let's zoom out even further. The Asia-US shipping route, one of the busiest in the world, is now teetering on the edge. Shipping carriers canceled over 1,200 voyages in a single month to avoid high-tariff ports. These blank sailings led to bottlenecks all over the Pacific. Some containers sat on ships for 2 extra weeks, waiting for clearance to dock. Others were diverted to Mexico or Canada, only to face more delays at the border. Freight insurance premiums doubled. companies began slashing exports to the U.S. altogether. Major shipping lines like Maersk and Evergreen publicly warned that the global trade system was becoming unpredictable. And when shipping gets messy, every business that depends on it suffers. That's everybody. Now imagine you're a Wall Street analyst watching this unfold. Walmart stock took a 9% hit in one day after announcing the price hikes and distribution center closures. That may not sound like much, but in market terms, that's billions in lost value. And it didn't stop with Walmart. Electronics giants, apparel brands, toy makers, all companies that rely on Walmart's scale, began issuing earnings warnings. Some lost 10 to 15% of their market cap in a week. Investors called it the start of a retail recession. Back in the real world, that same panic hit shoppers. Walmart issued a statement begging customers not to panic buy, but it was too late. Paper towels? Gone. Peanut butter? Empty shelves. Baby formula? Not a bottle in sight. It wasn't just COVID déjà vu. It was worse, because no one knew how long this would last. Still not feeling the impact? Let's go back to your shopping cart. A bottle of orange juice, $5.29, up from $3.99. A 2-pack of kitchen sponges, $6.50, used to be $4.20. A gallon of milk? In some states, $6.89. And it's not just groceries. A basic office chair from Walmart's private label line now costs $40 more. A 32-inch smart TV? $100 more than last year. And worst of all, these aren't premium upgrades. It's the same product, just with new tariff taxes baked in. Walmart's everyday low prices promise? For the first time in decades, it's officially broken. Let's not forget Walmart's big push into e-commerce. For years, they've been chasing Amazon, investing billions into faster shipping, better product selection, and a sleek marketplace for third-party sellers. But tariffs hit that platform like a wrecking ball. Why? Because most third-party sellers import their products. And when tariffs skyrocketed, their costs did too. Sellers either raised prices, which killed sales, or they pulled out entirely. Search for baby toys on Walmart.com today, and you'll notice fewer listings. Some entire categories now show out-of-stock banners where there used to be dozens of sellers. Walmart's attempt to become a digital retail titan? Slowed, bleeding, possibly stalled. While everyone's eyes were on Walmart, other retail giants started quietly pulling out of China. Target, Costco, and Home Depot didn't wait for the storm to hit. They began urgently shifting their supply chains. Where to? Mainly to Vietnam and India. But this wasn't just a smart business move, it was a survival tactic. Target signed deals with Vietnamese textile factories. Costco ramped up imports of spices and home goods from India. On paper, it looked smart. But in reality, it turned into total chaos. Vietnamese ports were bursting at the seams. Indian customs got overwhelmed with new registrations. And here's the kicker. Most of these new suppliers still rely on Chinese components and materials. So the attempt to move away from China just circled right back to China. The ironic part? The tariffs that were supposed to sever ties with China actually sped up a global supply chain shuffle. And the ones paying the price? Us, the shoppers. You might be asking, did any jobs actually come back to the US? Well, yes, briefly. When imports got too expensive, a few US factories saw a spike in orders. Textile plants in North Carolina ramped up production. A plastic goods factory in Ohio restarted 2 production lines. It looked like tariffs might finally bring manufacturing home. But that celebration didn't last long. Why? Because production costs in the US are way higher than in Asia. Even with tariffs, American-made products were still too expensive. As one factory manager put it, people love made in the USA, but no one wants to pay 40% more. By July, many of those newly reopened factories were already scaling back again. That so-called reshoring boom? It was an illusion. Now let's talk about the people behind the scenes, the logistics crews, truckers, warehouse workers, forklift operators. When Walmart shut down 10 distribution centers, it didn't just affect their own employees, it shook the entire supply chain. So here we are. A trade war that was supposed to protect American strength is now breaking global retail. Walmart is bleeding. Small businesses are gasping for air. Ports are jammed. Prices are climbing. Workers are losing hours and jobs. All because of policies that were meant to help. So now we have to ask, Is this the cost of protecting the American economy? Or is this the price of poor economic timing? And more urgently, what happens next? The courts could reinstate tariffs by August. Walmart might shut down even more hubs. Prices could rise again. Will they ever come back down? No one knows. But one thing is clear, this is just the beginning. If you've made it this far, you clearly care. So don't miss what's next. Pushpin hit that like button. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. It helps us beat the algorithm and helps you stay informed.